Good evening.
Good evening.
Peace to everybody. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Tariq Mahmood. I'm the Vice Chair of Havering Interfaith Forum. Today we are at the hospitality of Romford and District Affiliated Synagogue. Thank you very much to our hosts. There will be an interfaith discussion today about how my faith contributed to the world, where we will be hearing from different faith leaders about inventions, famous people, contribution to the arts, sports, music, etc. that specifically came about as a result of their faith. Then we will all eat together and conclude with an interactive question and answer session. So, to kick off the evening, our first speaker, Rabbi Lee Sunderland, will speak to us from this synagogue. Let's welcome Rabbi Lee.
Good evening, thank you for all being here. Okay, so remember when you're asking your questions, the topic of the evening is, what has your religion inspired you to invent? If you want to know what Jews invented, go on the internet, look up the Nobel Prize and you'll find it. If you want to know what Muslims invented, go on to the Nobel Peace Prize, you'll find it, it's all there. We don't want to bore you. We want to give you something a little bit different, and I want to give you something a little bit different tonight. It's something that I only actually came across a couple of nights ago, but God's timing is perfect. And this was a nature program on Sky Nature. And did you know that Israel, being almost in the center of the world, is the place twice a year for the biggest migration of birds in the world? Millions of birds make their way from Europe via Israel down to Africa to migrate, and then on the way back they come from Africa, stop off in Israel, back up to wherever it is they go in Europe. And what is happening is actually that there is a competition. People come from all over the world for a contest, and the contest is how many different species of birds can you spot in the 3 days of the contest. One particular team, I don't know if they won or not, spotted 165 different species of birds flying around Israel just in April, just in time for them to have a little break while they're on their way back to Africa. Now you might think that that's absolutely fantastic, and it is, until millions of birds come down onto Earth and start eating. And they eat billions of fish, thousands of tons of wheat. Where's it all supposed to come from? What would you do if you were a farmer and your fields are being absolutely ravished by millions of birds? Well, in Israel they've said, it's in the book, we're supposed to be looking after the place. It's illegal for you to shoot one of them. Squeal the farmers, what are we going to do? So this is what they've done. They've created a man-made lake into which they've poured thousands of gallons of water, and then twice a day trucks on ramps slide down backwards, open up, and thousands of tons of fish just get swarmed in. Dead fish from goodness knows where. And the birds eat to their heart's content. And they do this every day for weeks until the birds are ready to migrate back to wherever it is they're going. Either south if it's for the summer or north if it's in the winter. That's fine if they eat fish. What do they do if they eat corn? We're doing exactly the same thing. They've created a farm. And what they've done is let the farmers go in there, harvest, and then get lost. And whatever is left, the birds have. And when it's not enough, and they know it's not enough, they will bring in massive tractors, and their tractors will spray seeds of corn all over the place so that the birds can eat. But what they've done also is, on the back of this tractor, there's another one with an open wall in which are sitting scientists. And they are taking photographs and spying out the land. And what they're doing every year is capturing different species of birds, weighing them, measuring them, doing the lot, and putting little chips on them, and then let them go, so that they can nurture them, and they can see and tell what's going on. And what they've actually managed to do is, in several places, put up hundreds and hundreds of bird hutches, so that little families of birds will come and eat there, but more importantly, they'll have their young. And they can increase the amount of birds of particular species, because they are part of the world nature trail. What they give to the world in whichever country it is, we can tell. And we need it badly. So in order not to spoil nature, they're encouraging it. So instead of killing these birds because they're a nuisance and a pain in the neck, they actually nurture them. They feed them. They watch them. And then make sure that they let them go. And then count them when they're coming back. The first is the directive to man in the Bible, is you're put on this world to work it, but to safeguard it. And they want to make sure that all these different species of birds, hundreds of them, are safeguarded. They make sure that there are enough of them growing and thriving, so that the balance of nature is not disturbed. And this is just one little thing that we as Jews are doing for the entire world. And most people don't even know that it's happening, unless you're a nutter with a binocular who likes looking out for birds. There you go.
Well done, Ray.
Thank you very much, Rabbi, for your interesting angle. Let's welcome our second illustrious speaker, Mr. John Lester. He's from the Bahai Faith and the chair of the Havering Interfaith Forum. And let's listen to the Bahai's contribution. Let's welcome John.
I can't remember any inventions having been created exactly only by the Baha'i faith, but Baha'u'llah does give rules for invention. He says, the third tajali is concerning sciences, crafts and arts. Knowledge is like unto wings for the being and is a ladder for ascending. To acquire knowledge is incumbent on all, but of these sciences which may profit the people of the earth, not such sciences as begin in mere words and end in mere words. So that's the important thing about inventions, are they should benefit humanity. The The prime mover of inventions, as the rabbi illustrated, is something called necessity, the mother of invention. Baha'u'llah warns about a discovery that could be ominous. He says, "A strange and wonderful instrument exists in the earth, but it is concealed from minds and souls. It is an instrument which has the power to change the atmosphere of the whole earth, and its infection causes destruction." Now, one can interpret that quite easily when one looks at the 20th century and the atom bomb and nuclear bombs and so on. It's contamination, it's destruction. So let's go on now from there to the famous people who contributed to humanity. There was a little girl called Jane Peters in America. She was in Los Angeles, and her mother had a close friend who was a Baha'i. And through her mother, Jane Peters heard of the Abdu'l-Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah. And Jane Peters wanted to be an actress. She longed to be an actress, and she wrote a letter to Abdu'l-Baha saying she really wanted to be an actress. "If only he approves, I shall not fail," she said determinedly. Abdu'l-Baha's reply came. He said he would pray for her to be an actress, and a successful one. So she started to become an actress. She changed her name from Jane Peters to Carol Lombard. Appeared in films. Her mother became a Baha'i, and she became a Baha'i. She said when she became a Baha'i, "I have acted many parts, I have been in many plays, but this is the greatest act of my life. This is why I was born." People who know her said that she was very much very much against racism. She did things that tried to embrace different races. She had lack of ostentation, or simple clothes, and lots of acts of kindness, plain speak, and so on. She was killed, as you probably know, in an air crash when she was selling bonds in the service of her country during the Second World War. At her funeral, her husband, Clark Gable, read from the writings of Baha'u'llah. So that is one famous person who was a Baha'i. The second one is a queen. Queen Marie of Romania, who was a granddaughter of Queen Victoria. She heard of her faith, from a lady called Martha Root. And when she heard about the Baha'i faith, Queen Marie said, "It is a wondrous message. I commend it to you all. If ever the name of Baha'u'llah or Abdu'l-Baha comes to your attention, do not put their writings from you. Search out their books and let their glorious peace-bringing, love-creating words and lessons sink into your hearts as they have into mine." So there we have a queen who effectively became a Baha'i. There were problems about a queen being queen in Romania. She was sort of ousted by her son, so they had a king instead. And when her ship was in the eastern Mediterranean and she wanted to come ashore in Haifa and go to the Baha'i holy places on Mount Carmel and meet the head of Baha'i faith Shoghi Effendi, she was prevented by unfriendly political influences and had to forego it. Now we come to a potter, Bernard Leach, who was born in Hong Kong but spent his early years in Japan, then before coming to England. And because of this dual background, both English and Japanese, he became an internationally known potter and liaised between East and West, bringing the best of both to his pottery. He learned of the Baha'i faith in Japan, and it's interesting even when he met someone called Mark Toby, another artist. His pottery is so famous that when Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip went to Japan in 1975. They took as gifts for the Emperor and Empress plates and etchings Bernard Leach had done in Japan. They took Bernard Leach's work as a gift to the Emperor and Empress because he had so combined the best of East and West. He was made a CBE in 1973 and even made a Companion of Honour, only the first craftsman to achieve this rank. Wrote a book called Beyond East and West and lived less exotically in St Ives in Cornwall. Lived till he was 92. Fourth one is a musician, a jazz musician, Dizzy Gillespie, who was renowned as a very famous trumpeter, and in the 1940s developed bebop. He became a Baha'i in 1968 and was well known for mentioning it at his meetings. Two very quick ones. Earl Cameron was an actor from Bermuda, and he was one of the first black actors to make an impact in films in this country, a film called Paul of London. So he did a lot for the future of black actors in the UK. He had a major role in Paul of London, and that was one of the first times a black actor had made a big role in a film. And the other one was another monarch, the Malietoa of Samoa, King of Samoa, also became Baha'i. So there are some of the important people, the famous people who Baha'is came from the Baha'i faith. But we do have another influence, contribution to humanity, through our Baha'i international community. The Baha'i faith was made a non-governmental organisation of the United Nations in 1948. We have permanent offices in New York and Geneva, and regional offices in Addis Ababa, Brussels and Jakarta. We have consultative status with UNESCO, that's the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, and UNICEF, the International Children's Emergency Fund. And we have accreditation also with the United Nations Environment Programme and the Department of Global Communications. We have joined in with the Commissions on Social Development, had breakfast meetings to address practical challenges and potential solutions, and particularly talk about the equality of women and men. A major role we played was at a conference in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 in Brazil. The Earth Summit it was called, although the real title was the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. It was about sustainable development and climate change. So that's nothing new. 32 years ago, climate change. We sent a big delegation to this conference, stressed the importance of ethics and spirituality as motivational factors, submitted a formal statement, co-sponsors signed events, one about the extremes of wealth and poverty in a green economy, and synergy between faith values and education for sustainable development. There was a parallel conference for young people we took part in. We sponsored interactive workshops on trusteeship in the context of sustainable development. And also a parallel conference, civil society conference exploring spiritual principles for development and the social role of religions. We also participated in pre-conference meetings, including Global Reconstruction Forum, or Global Reconstruction Forum, can't read my writing, Forum on Sustainable Consumption and Production, and the Forum on Scientific Technology and Innovations for Social Development, Sustainable Development. So that we have contributed to humanity in that way as well. One of the things we did was, in 1985, the Universal House of Justice, the key body, the ruling body of the Baha'i faith, brought out a book called The Promise of World Peace, which was sent to all the leaders of the world. It began, quite hopefully, world peace is not only possible but inevitable. Ah, that sounds good, yes. But whether peace is to be reached only after unimaginable horrors precipitated by humanity's stubborn clinging to old patterns of behaviour, or is to embrace now by an act of consultative will, is the choice before all who inhabit the earth. Looks as if we're going to the first rather than the second at the moment. So this was sent round, and it had all kinds of subheadings: religion as a source of order, the fundamental unity of religions, racism, must get rid of racism, the root causes of war, the extremes of poverty and wealth, something else to get rid of, unbridled nationalism, these are all bars to world peace, religious strife, another bar towards peace, caused by people not properly following their religions, the need for the emancipation of women, the need for universal education, the need for an auxiliary language that we can all speak, and have spiritual solutions for social problems. And the whole thing was, world order can be founded only on an unshakable consciousness of the oneness of mankind, a spiritual truth which all the human sciences confirm. So the whole thing was the oneness of mankind. This message was given to all the rulers of the world. It was presented in countries like Britain. It was presented directly, deputation to the Queen, the Prime Minister, and the local MPs, etc. In countries where that would have had Baha'is put in prison, it was done through the Baha'i international community at the United Nations. So that's another way we contribute. Leaders don't seem to take an awful lot of notice of it so far, but it is there for them if they want it. And lastly, the actual structure of the Baha'i faith. We have these buildings called Mashriq al-Azkars. Just as I think the same thing would come with a church and a mosque. That is not just a place where people pray. Our Mashriq al-Azkars in the future will have attached a hospital, a chemist, that'll be a nice job for Tariq if he wants one, a school for orphans, an old folks home, and a travellers hospice, people for people to stay, people for old folk to go. The one in Wilmette, apparently, the old folks home is full there, and not one of the people in it is a Baha'i, so they're open to everybody. And then the local spiritual assemblies, which will soon, once they become local houses of justice, when they have the capacity, they have to look at the spiritual education of children, the relief of the poor, helping the feeble, and kindness to all, so helping society in that way as well. So though we haven't actually invented anything, as far as I know, we may have done, we may well have done, but we do an awful lot to contribute to the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for your very interesting discourse and offer of a job to me, which could be very lucrative, but I'm past my sell-by date. That's the problem. Okay, now we'll move on to our third speaker, the expert in presentation in various subjects, Sister Sidra Naeem. She is the secretary of our Havering Interfaith Forum and a Muslim scholar. She's a chaplain and teacher as well. In her role as chaplain, she has delivered many talks on a subject of the golden age of Islamic inventions and medical inventions at Basildon Hospital, medical schools, universities and mosques. So I'll stop right there and invite Sister Sidra to take over the...
Thank you very much. So I am going to be covering the Islamic perspective on how my faith has contributed to the world, but specifically through the faith. How has the faith in a way contributed towards what we have contributed to the world, if that makes sense. So who knows the period of time within Islam which is really, really famous, where at least 1001 inventions took place? What is that period of time called?
10th century, the golden times.
Golden times, you're nearly there.
Golden Age.
The Golden Age of Islam, it's called. The Golden Age of Islam is very, very famous. You can look it up in all the books, in, you know, even within schools they're teaching it now. It was a period of time where so many inventions took place. And nowadays we're actually going into the second golden age of Islamic inventions, which I will speak to you as I go along. The first, it has already happened, but the second golden age is as a consequence of the first inventions that took place, that have now been expanded upon, and more inventions are taking place nowadays. Did you have your hand up there?
I did. It's just to mention that on documentaries and things, we hear all about Roman history, Alexander the Great, the Moguls, but on the TV I don't hear much about Islamic Golden Age.
Yes, well, it did take place.
Okay.
But it obviously, like Islam always is portrayed quite badly in the media, and sometimes it's hidden. The books were, you know, destroyed as well on entry. IDs were nicked. We know about all of that.
Okay.
Okay, so you just need to look into the history and you will understand. So that Islamic age is huge. There is at least 1001 inventions, and they are all in this book. That's minimum, okay? If I covered all of them, I would be here for 4 hours, because I have done this talk. It's on my YouTube channel, which you can find. There's my YouTube channel, and that was a 4-hour talk, okay? So what I'm going to do today is I am going to talk just about the inventions that came about specifically as a result of the faith, Islam, okay? So there are 3 types of inventions that took place, and there were reasons why they were done. Can anybody tell me the 3 reasons why Islamic inventions took place? What was the reasons? There's 3. Yes?
It was the astrolabe to figure out the movement of the stars, and so they could navigate the ships.
Right. So what you mean is some inventions had to take place as a result of religious requirements. Yes? Although navigation isn't a religious requirement. Okay, I think that's what you mean though, with the astrolabe.
Generally astronomy.
Yeah, why did the inventions have to take place? Why did people start doing inventions, making things?
Because it was necessary.
But why?
Well, I don't know.
To
I'm not an
measure,
inventor.
to tell the time.
Right, that is along the lines of what you said about the astrolabe,
lunar calendar.
as a result of the religion, okay? What were the other 2? Right, the other one is, in Islam it said seek knowledge. Go out and seek knowledge. So people seeked knowledge, looked into things, and then started inventing things. That's a really big one. That's going to come up next. The other one which nobody got is in the Quran, the elliptical patterns of the stars and the moon and the earth. Everything was there. So when people read the Quran, they thought, wow, let's investigate. Let's invent, you know, microscopes to look into this. Let's invent a telescope to see, is that really true? Does the earth really go round? Does the sun really turn around as well? Does the moon really have all the little, you know, what do you call it, the
Craters.
you know, the craters, what is it when they whine and they wane? The moon whines and wanes into crescents. Phases of the moon, they're in the Quran. How are we going to see that? Well, we need to invent telescopes, okay? So the curiosity came from the Quran because of all the science in there. Everything was in there, the world patterns, the gravity, physics, chemistry, it was all in the Quran. Evaporation was in the Quran. Okay, so people then investigated and started doing experiments to see, is it all true? Yes.
You said the mention of to learn came from the religion,
Yes, that was one
was
of the
it a
reasons.
suggestion, request, demand, or order?
You will find out. I'm going to do that bit next.
Okay.
That's what I'm covering today. Right, so the very first one was, it said seek knowledge. That's the major one. Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, get yourself educated, and that resulted in inventions. So let's have a look at the video.
Did you know a man who couldn't read and write was voted the most influential person in history ever? Crazy, right? But absolutely true. That man was the Prophet Muhammad, who through the Quran was able to take a group of ancient tribal Arabs who were farmers and goat and camel herders and inspire them to greatness, where they changed the world, and now 1.8 billion people today follow their example. But what was the key to this massive transformation? How did they make so much impact and so quickly? It was down to one key word: knowledge. No other religion stresses as much on seeking knowledge as Islam. But what does this mean? Why does it stress on it so much? The Muslim attitude towards knowledge made it the greatest civilization in the world and has shaped the world as we know it today. It is said in Islam, to seek knowledge is compulsory on every believer. Given this obligation to seek beneficial knowledge, this is how the early Muslim scientists, architects and engineers saw their own work. They sought and implemented knowledge as a means of worshipping Allah. They recognized that the more that they learned about the world, the better they would understand and impact their deen, and vice versa. It was this unquenchable thirst for knowledge that led to world exploration, advances in science, art and technology, and free, empowered communities. The Quran is the ultimate book of knowledge for us until the end of time, and is devoted to intellect, knowledge, learning, logic, and to think. The first verses of the Quran to be revealed began with the word Iqra, read. The Quran mentions the word knowledge in various forms 854 times, and that many times human beings are asked to think, consider, and to reason. Allah has said in the Quran that He has sent down the book so that it may explain to us all things, that is, all things throughout history until the end of time. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized the importance of acquiring knowledge in many different ways. He looked at knowledge over time. Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. He looked at knowledge by location. Seek knowledge even if it is as far as China. He did not differentiate by gender or by age. Seeking of knowledge is a duty of every Muslim. He also didn't differentiate by faith. Wisdom is the lost property of the believer, and he should take it even if he finds it in the mouth of a non-Muslim. The Prophet Adam ﷺ was taught the names of all things, and it was this knowledge which distinguished him from the angels. Humanity has inherited from Adam the ability to acquire knowledge. We are able to learn about the world around us and the things that it contains. We have the power of language and the ability to reason. Many of the greatest scientific thinkers in Islam were religious scholars, which suggests that they would learn the sciences in conjunction with learning and understanding their religion. What made them great was their approach to knowledge, which allowed them to excel. As you can see, Islam heavily stresses on the importance of gaining knowledge, which led them on to amazing achievements in science, trade, engineering and exploration. Great Islamic thinkers demonstrated how faith and philosophy, religion and science, revelation and reason didn't just merely coexist, but thrived together in harmony, and it was this deep attitude toward knowledge that elevated them to great things.
That is an overview of how all the inventions took place. But now we're going to specifically focus on the ones that came about as a result of the religion. Otherwise I'll be here all day for 4 hours. Okay? So, first of all, universities. Seek knowledge. The very first university was opened by a woman, Fatima al-Firriya, under the Khalifa that built the first university during 841 CE in Morocco. And science along other subjects were taught. She taught quite a few subjects as well. This is actually the university. This is the oldest university in the world, Al-Qarawiyyin in Fez, and it's still there today. Yes, I have been there myself. And that was the very first university, and then the very big one in Baghdad opened because people wanted to seek knowledge. And because people wanted to seek knowledge, universities had to come about. And they started right at the top, and then schools came later. And this is where all the inventions and everything was studied, and then all the inventions came about. So the very first thing is the Quran. Okay? The Quran was revealed, it was written, it was spoken. So what had to be done immediately? Rabbi Lee, we were speaking about this earlier. Would you like to tell us the answer?
We'll write it down.
We had to write it down
Copy it.
straight away, otherwise it's going to
Get lost.
get lost. Yes? So I like that answer a lot. Okay, well done, Rabbi Lee. And the Quran was written in beautiful calligraphy. If you look at the Quran, it's written in such a way that there's fat and thin bits, it goes up and down, there's circles, it's really, really beautifully written. That's my name written in calligraphy as well. So calligraphy was invented by Muslims, but also what else? I'm looking at you because you always have this. What's that in your hand?
Pens.
What kind of pen?
Fountain pen.
Why a fountain pen? What's different about a fountain pen and a biro?
It's got a feeding tube and a reservoir.
Yes.
And a method of delivery of the ink.
And can it go fat and thin the way you write it?
You can.
Yes.
By angles.
Okay. We talked about calligraphy, and calligraphy came about by Muslims, and this is the fountain pen. In 953, the Sultan of Egypt demanded a writing tool which would not leak ink or stain his clothes. The fountain pen was devised. This had a reservoir which held the ink, and gravity and capillary action moved the ink to the writing tip, enabling it to write. Okay? So that is how the fountain pen was then invented as a direct consequence of the religion. There's something else you mentioned to me earlier. This is the good thing about coming early. We've had some great conversations today.
Printing.
Yes, well done. He's doing very well today.
I've got a good memory.
The printing press. Now with the Quran, it is completely unchanged since 1400 years. The reason is the Quran had to be printed exactly the same everywhere. The only way to do that is to invent a printing press. This is another invention as a consequence of the religion. Okay? So that is the very first printing press there. In 1454, Gutenberg developed the most sophisticated printing press of the Middle Ages. However, movable brass trunks were in use in Islamic Spain 100 years prior of that, where the world's first printing devices were made. Okay? So, that is the Quran. What is the next most important thing in Islam? I think you mentioned something. Second pillar of Islam, everybody.
Prayer.
Prayer, right. Prayer is revealed. Which prayer is the most difficult one to locate the time of? No, that's very easy. It starts to get dark, you know it's Maghrib. Very easy to determine Maghrib.
Daybreak.
Oh, you're talking about daybreak as in Fajr?
Yeah.
No, that's easy.
It's easy.
As soon as it becomes light, you know it's time to pray.
Afternoon prayer.
Right, what is it called?
Asr.
Asr. Now, that mid-afternoon prayer is so important in Islam, and a lot of people don't know this, but we believe that is where there's a shift of angels and all the good deeds go up. Whatever we're doing, the angels take all our good deeds up to God, okay? So that is crucial to pray on time. And it's because of that prayer, something had to be invented to know when that prayer is, okay? So let us hear about that prayer first of all.
The Quran says, guard the obligatory prayers, and in particular the Asr prayer. According to historian David A. King, the Asr prayer became the focal point of the development of mathematical geography and astronomy in the Muslim world.
Okay, and it was because of that prayer. So what had to be invented, everybody?
Clock.
Clocks. Clocks are very important in Islam, and it does make me wonder why everyone's always late. Muslims are late everywhere, yet it was us who invented the clocks. It really gets to me, that does. Okay, so the very first thing that happened was the pendulum was invented first. Discovered, it was this man, Yunus al-Masri, first to study and document its oscillatory motion. Its use in clocks was introduced by Muslim physicists during the 15th century. A 13th century engineer created the fabled elephant clock and invented groundbreaking machines, changing the way we harness technology today. This is a picture of the very first clock. It was called the elephant clock, and you can see some Arabic writing in the background as well. And then all the cogs and the machinery to go in it was invented as well, which then went into other machinery, was copied into other machinery. So mechanical engineering in 1206 he published a book called Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices. In it he described over 50 inventions, including a combination lock, mechanical clocks powered by water and weights, valves and pistons, crank shaft, key mechanism, and nearly all inventions which turns rotary motion into linear and can be used for internal combustion engines and to raise water to irrigate crops as well. Remember, there was a shortage of water in Arabia, so they needed to invent something like this where they can get the water out from under the ground and irrigate the crops. Okay, right, we're ready for prayer. It's time to pray, everybody. The clock's there. Oh, we know it's time to pray. What's next? What do we go and do? Wash, wudu, okay? We wash ourselves. And did you know that something had to be invented to get the water out of the ground, because there's a shortage of water in Arabia. So this is where things like hydropower was invented. So all that mechanism you saw was invented to get the water out of the ground so that it can come up in the wells, and dams were then invented as well. Okay, so this is how that invention came about.
One of the most important mechanical inventions in the history of humankind is the crankshaft, which is used in most machinery today, and it was created by an ingenious Muslim engineer called Al-Jazari to raise water for irrigation. His 1206 book of knowledge of ingenious mechanical devices shows that he also invented the use of valves and pistons and was considered the father of robotics. Amongst his 50 other inventions was the combination lock. His legacy and importance in the history of engineering is unrivaled. Until modern times, there was no other document from any cultural area that provided a comparable wealth of instructions for the design, manufacture, and assembly of machines. The impact of all his inventions can be seen and felt in all of the later designing of steam engines and internal combustion engines, paving the way for automatic control and other modern machinery.
Okay, so that's what I mean by second generation golden Islam. This is all second generation. Okay, right. When we do our wudu, we brush our teeth. Okay, did you know the very first toothbrush was invented by Muslims? This is called a miswak, and this has all the ingredients in it that you need to brush your teeth with. It's a toothpaste and toothbrush all in one, everybody. Did you know that? Okay, so it's been proved that siwak is effective in stopping the growth of bacteria in the mouth due to its chemical composition. Did you know it's ingredients from this that is in modern day toothpaste nowadays? Okay, what else did Muslims invent for washing wise? Anybody? Soap, good. So soap, again, ancient Egyptians and Romans had a form of pomade from which Muslim Arabs perfected a recipe for soap, creating a vegetable oil and sodium hydroxide base to which fragrant thyme oil was added. And it was actually a Muslim person who brought soap to Britain as well. Okay? Right.
You didn't say that miswak grows on a tree.
It does,
Branch.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes, it's a branch, isn't it, of a tree, which then we chew and it becomes a brush. Okay? Right, you've washed yourself, now what's next?
Pray.
Right? You don't just pray, do you?
Oh, you call the people to pray.
It's nearly time to pray, and the call to prayer somebody mentioned goes off. Okay? Something had to be done in order that you can hear the call to pray far and wide, because in those days when Islam came there was no electricity and hence no loudspeakers. Who can tell me which structure we have today that is like a natural loudspeaker? Yes.
The arc shape, the dome.
Dome. Okay, so the dome shape, which is in a mosque, is there for a reason. It's a natural loudspeaker which echoes the whole prayer everywhere. Okay, so we go to the mosque, it's time to pray, the call to prayers happen, we run to the mosque. Did you know that in a mosque we don't put any images of any people or God, because Islam came to get rid of idol worship and paganism? Okay, so all of these styles of decoration, geometric, vegetal and calligraphy, all came about as a result of our religion. And that's what we decorate our mosques with. It was during the Umayyad dynasty that an artistic style, which could be clearly defined as Islamic, began to develop. And here are some of the forms of Islamic art. Okay? On this Quran I've got one form as well, which is the vegetal form, which you can see there. Okay? Right. What's next? We haven't got to the direction of prayer yet, but what do we grab first?
Prayer mat.
Prayer mat.
Prayer mat. So, what do you think Muslims invented?
Carpet.
Carpets. We know that from Turkey. This is one of the most original prayer mats. Did you know this is how they were done, and they were invented in Turkey? And they were, because we pray on the floor, then obviously this is to keep us off any dirty surface. Okay? So that's very, very important. Right, anything else? What's next?
You get the direction right.
Right, he's getting it. He's getting it. The next bit is direction. Which way do you face? Okay? We don't know that though, do we? Something had to be invented to know which way do we face. Okay?
Why do you have to face different ways to pray?
We face towards east. So everybody in the
Always to
whole
the east.
Yes.
Yes.
So if everybody in the whole world is all facing the same way, all at the same time, it promotes brotherhood and unity. Okay. Right, the next one is the direction where you face to pray. Now, I have already done this lecture. We did a lecture on astronomy. I don't know if anybody remembers. It was part of the Interfaith forum. And we did it at the mosque. And Barbara Hilton as well came, do you remember, from your pharmacy, to do half the talk on science and half the talk was on the religion.
Her hobby was astronomy.
Yes, so we did a full-blown lecture already on astronomy, which you can look at on my YouTube channel. So I'm not going to cover all of that again. However, I will talk about what you discussed. You said what was it you said?
Astrolabe.
The astrolabe was invented by this man, Al-Batani, so that we all know which way to face for prayers. He was actually a Turkish astronomer, but he worked and did his works in Syria. He actually corrected Plotonomy, is it? Plotonomy's work and Copernicus's works as well. Used his work. So developed astrolabes were developed by Muslim astronomers, 8th century mathematician Muhammad al-Fazari, by introducing angular scales and adding circles indicating azimuths on the horizon. 10th century Abdul Rahman al-Sufi described 1,000 uses of astrolabes: astronomy, astrology, horoscopes, navigation, surveying, timekeeping, prayer times and direction. And it was introduced to Europe in 1100 and became most popular astronomical instrument by 1650. Okay? It was also very easy in the Middle East to discover and work on astronomy. Does anybody know why that is?
No clouds.
No clouds, clear skies, open in the desert, you can see all the stars and you can study all the patterns. And they were mentioned in the Quran as well. All the stars and everything was mentioned in the Quran. And it talks about finding directions through the stars and using them as navigation. So I have got a video now which you will have to read, there's no sound. And the stuff on there is all about an overview of some of the astronomical inventions that took place as a result of prayer and direction of prayer. Okay, the Islamic calendar is based on the moon. Okay, we need to know when Eid is. That's when all the observatories started on determining where, you know, when it's the moon. We still can't get it right. There's always a kerfuffle on Eid. We never know when Eid is. But it was actually Muslims who invented all of that. And Muslims are so proud of all the inventions to do with astronomy that the moon and star has become a symbol on nearly all of our flags and the top of mosques as well. You know, on the dome you get a moon and a star. Because Muslims are very, very proud of all the inventions to do with astronomy. So many people ask me, why do you have a moon and a star on, you know, all your, you know, top of your mosques and everything, and on all your flags? Well, that's the reason, okay? So that is the main reason. So you always get the star and the moon everywhere. One thing that wasn't mentioned in there is the eclipse. So the eclipse of the moon passing over the earth and everything is actually mentioned in the Quran. So instruments were also invented to have a look at the eclipses that are mentioned in the Quran. There's a special prayer when there's an eclipse, and that is again a direct invention because of the religion, which is the only things I'm covering today. Right, what else is it that you drink tons of, which is to do with keeping you awake at night? So say you do Tarawih prayers and you've got to stay up all night praying, what is it that you need?
Coffee.
Coffee. So here is our coffee, which, did you know, is a Muslim drink?
No,
Okay.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No, but I have been to India where they grow coffee beans in other parts of the world.
Yes, they do, they do. But originally, did you know that there was a man called Khalid, he was an Ethiopian shepherd, and he noticed his goats had more energy after eating a special berry, so he made a drink out of it, and he gave it then to people who needed to stay up at night to pray. This then spread from Yemen to Turkey, and then Italy, and then to England. Okay?
Why is there all the different types of coffee though? If you go to Turkey,
Yes.
you get this thick, black, very
Yes.
bitter coffee,
Yes.
and then you go other parts of
Yeah,
the world.
yeah, that's all commercialism, isn't it? It's like cappuccino and mocha and
No, I'm not
latte
talking
and all of
about
those.
No, they're just...
Yeah, I think you probably get different species of coffee as you go around the world, and some like it stronger and some like it milky.
One
and that kind of stuff.
possible reason was that there's very little water in the desert, so you could only use that.
Right, now that's logical.
That's a good one, yes. Okay, right, so, discovered in the 1400s in Yemen. Mocha is a region, here we go. Mocha is a region in Yemen, and Java is an island in Indonesia. This is covering all the different types. Seen as a bad drink, it was in the 1500s due to its association with Islam. First coffee house opened in Istanbul in 1554. Muslims used it to stay awake during night prayers, and European coffee houses borrowed many Islamic ideas. We got the coffee, what do you need to go with it, everybody?
Water.
Well, I'd like a
What do you
brandy,
drink it in?
actually.
Turkey, think of turkey, what do you have in turkey? I can't hear anybody.
Glass.
A large
Glasses. Where does glass come from? How do you make glass?
Sand.
Sand. Where's the biggest amount of sand? In the Middle East, in the desert. So yes, Muslims invented glass, and the very first thing they invented was a glass to drink their coffee in. And this is why when you go to Turkey, you get all these fancy glasses and all of this, don't you? I've actually got a set in my house. I was supposed to bring it today and I forgot. Right, moving on to the next pillar. We've done prayer. What's the next pillar, everybody?
Charity.
Charity. I'm glad somebody's awake. Charity is the next pillar. Money. Okay, money, giving money, lending money. What is it in Islam where you have to write it down when you lend people money with two witnesses? Do you think there was something which Muslims invented to sort that all out?
Contract. Accounting.
Pardon?
Accounting.
No, it's actually a checkbook. Okay? The modern check comes from the Arabic sak, a written vow to pay for goods when they were delivered to avoid money having to be transported across dangerous terrain. In the 9th century, a Muslim businessman could cash a check in China drawn on his bank in Baghdad. Okay, very interesting. Okay. The next, the other thing with glass was also laboratory equipment. And did you know that evaporation was mentioned in the Quran? The whole cycle, water cycle, is mentioned in the Quran. And because of the water cycle and the glass, laboratory equipment was actually invented so that you could evaporate chemicals and things. And this is how all the pharmaceutical industry actually started. This is the evaporation cycle in the Quran. And from it, Arabs delved into steam distillation. Okay, the concept of finite nature of matter first introduced by Persia's Muslim scholar. This was referred to their books frequently, and later introduced these principles to Europe in the 18th century. Discovered, although matter may change its form, its mass remains the same. Lots and lots of experiments started. The next one is crucial. In the Quran it said there is a cure for every illness. And this is what I meant. There were things in the Quran which forced people to go and start investigating. When that was revealed, people thought, really? Let's get into medicine quickly. Why do you think there's so many doctors and pharmacists and dentists that are Muslim and scientists? So here is that famous quote.
The world of medicine and health as you know it would be completely different had it not been for the innovation and knowledge of the Islamic world. Armed with the Quran, which made numerous mentions of healing, and knowing that God said He has created a cure for every illness, Muslims excelled in discovering new realms in medical science. At a time where Baghdad alone had some 80 hospitals, some of the greatest legacies of the Muslim world to this day are in the medical field.
Okay, a lot of Muslims get into medicine. Have you ever wondered why? It's because of the history. They want to carry on the legacy. Okay, and it could be in the genetics too, you never know. Okay, and this was the very first doctor, father of modern surgery. His name was Al-Zahrawi. He was known as Abu Cassis in the West. You might have heard of him, he's quite famous. He wrote a 30-volume book on medicine in the 900s, used as the main medical textbook in Europe for centuries. He taught us how to treat and prevent diseases by eating a healthy diet. He was the first one actually to talk about healthy diets. He documented the pathology of hydrocephalus, water on the brain and other congenital diseases. And the other really important thing is he was the first one to introduce operations. So once you introduce operations, you need all the instruments. So all the surgical instruments are all documented here in this book. Al-Zahrawi depicting surgical instruments used for operations that were used by Europeans 500 years after. And this is actually from the British Museum, this picture. So the British do recognise this. There's all Arabic writing on there. So Al-Zahrawi refined science of surgery, developed cauterization. Is that how you say it? Cauterization.
The doctor will check me on that.
Discovered diseases can be hereditary, as in genetics. Okay, people, believe it or not, don't even get that nowadays, some of the older generation. They don't understand genetics. But he discovered genetics, invented 200 surgical instruments, scalpels, forceps used today in childbirth, needles, precision scissors. He realized that catgut can be used as a capsule to allow medication to be ingested and used for stitching organs, and that it dissolves naturally. Ligated arteries with fine sutures 500 years prior to Pari. Developed hollow needle method to extract cataracts from eyes, used today. Used cotton and wax to plug bleeding wounds. So basically the first plasters. Now, we've got the operations, we've got the instruments. What else is needed for an operation?
Anesthetics.
Anesthetics, good. Did you know that Muslims don't drink alcohol, but they did invent it as an antiseptic? They use
Can I ask why
they use
they
it
don't drink alcohol?
we don't drink alcohol because we believe that when you drink alcohol, it alters your senses and then you may sin.
And then you may
sin. Yes.
Okay.
Obviously, the probability of doing sin is much more when you're drunk.
Yeah.
So in Islam, we don't drink alcohol, and that makes us peaceful people. Anesthetics. It was the narcotic soaked sponges were placed over faces. Okay. And Muslim physicians introduced the anesthetic value of opium derivatives during the Middle Ages. Modern anesthesia was discovered and perfected by Muslim anesthetists, and surgeons in Islamic Spain utilized special methods for maintaining antisepsis prior to and during surgery. I find that absolutely amazing, I really do. We've got here Razi treating a patient, father of pediatrics, psychology, psychotherapy as well. He studied body fluids to distinguish between different diseases. He studied eye conditions, all sorts of stuff. Okay, Muslim physicians used specific substances to destroy microbes and applied sulfur topically to kill the scabies mite. I'm really interested in this because in my past life, yes, I was a scientist and I was into all of this. Okay, right, the next one, I discussed the first generation and second generation of inventions. The next one is crucial to COVID. Okay. So let's look at this.
The concept of vaccinations were devised in the Muslim world and brought to Europe from Turkey by the wife of the English ambassador to Istanbul in 1724. Children in Turkey were vaccinated with cowpox to fight the deadly smallpox at least 50 years before the West discovered it.
Turkey are very, very proud that they are the ones who invented vaccines. Children in Turkey were vaccinated with cowpox to prevent smallpox, establishing the technique of inoculation. 50 years later, in 1724, the wife of the English ambassador to Turkey introduced this practice to Europe. This is actually hidden in history, but there is one couple which renewed that history, and it was hidden again. Did you know the couple that actually invented the COVID vaccine were Muslim, and guess where they were from? Turkey. Okay, so did anyone mention that the duo involved in Pfizer vaccine that was recently proved to be 90% effective against COVID is actually a Muslim couple from Turkey, and that is their names. You can Google them. Or is it only when it's about terrorism they mention Muslim in the news? Got to put that up. Because I'm telling you now, it wasn't anywhere. Only amongst the Muslims it was spread that they were Muslim. But was it anywhere? They were really heroes, were they not? Save the world, okay? The first hospitals, we've got operations, they need a hospital now to do it in. So very quickly, the first hospital opened in Damascus in 707. The first public hospital opened in Baghdad during the Abbasid Caliphate. Islamic hospitals were actually very modern for its time. If you look at mental health and stuff, it's only nowadays in this country that they're dealing with it. But Islamic hospitals maintain special wards for the insane. The mentally ill were treated with supportive care, drugs and psychotherapy. Islamic cities maintained an insane asylum where patients were treated at no charge. An Islamic system for treatment of the insane excelled in comparison to Europe. Right, pharmaceuticals. We've got all the stuff, now we've got all the medicines. Muslim chemists, pharmacists, physicians originated the science of pharmacology. They wrote the first modern pharmacopoeias. They produced drugs. Did you know the word drug is an Arabic word? Okay. And crude herbal extracts. That was then later circulated in Europe. Modern medicine is entirely an Islamic development. And we've got some more references there, but like I said, if you watch my YouTube channel, you can see the whole lecture. Right, to finish off, I have got a video on some of the revolutionary inventions to do with medicine and science.
We live in a period of great change, of discovery and technological innovation. All areas of science are experiencing this progress, including healthcare and medicine, which have taken huge leaps forward in recent history. This quantum surge in medical knowledge and ingenuity is similar in importance to that which occurred in the Arab and Islamic world over 1,000 years ago. It was a storm of knowledge and enlightenment that still echoes in the halls of hospitals and clinics today. From the first accurate descriptions of the circulatory system to vaccination, surgery, and establishing the first real hospitals, our ancestors built the groundwork of modern medicine. The scientists of that age were often prominent in a number of subject areas. Abu Bakr al-Razi, known more popularly as al-Razi, was a shining example of this. He lived around the turn of the 9th and 10th century AD and made fundamental and lasting contributions to the field of medicine, chemistry, music, and philosophy, which is documented in over 200 books and articles, and made many discoveries in medicine through his own observations and experiments. Among his many medical achievements was to differentiate between smallpox and measles, which used to be confused before then, and identified fever as being the body's natural defense system and not a disease in itself. Possibly his most famous work is the extensive medical encyclopedia in 9 volumes called Al-Hawi. When it was translated into Latin more than 300 years after his death, it had a big influence on the course of medicine in Europe. Equal, if not of greater influence in Western Europe, was the comprehensive work of Ibn Sina, the Canon of Medicine, which was translated into Latin and used as a textbook in several universities until the middle of the 17th century. It is best known for its scientific approach to medicine, based on experimentation and quantification, describing known contagious diseases and sexually transmitted diseases, and introducing quarantine to limit the spread of infectious diseases, in addition to predicting the existence of microorganisms. In surgery, other physicians left their legacy, like Abu al-Qasim al-Zahrawi, who identified 200 surgical instruments, many of which are still used today. He also introduced plaster for setting broken bones and catgut for stitching wounds, a practice still used today. Ammar ibn Ali al-Mawsili is also notable for inventing the injection syringe and hypodermic needle for the extraction of cataracts in the first successful cataract surgery. While Ibn Nafis was the first to accurately describe the blood-breathing and circulatory system in a manner comparable to modern medicine. And those were brilliant men of science that still shine bright in the stars of science galaxy.
Now, who likes maths?
Me.
You like maths. Right. I spoke earlier about the geometrical patterns in the mosques. I spoke also about the stars and the patterns. Okay. I also spoke about the astrolabe. While work was being done on the astrolabe, which, did you know, the first astrolabes were put on the prayer mats, which Muslims invented. That's when Muslims got into maths, because you need maths to work out all the angles of the stars. You need maths to work out the direction of you know, where to pray. You need maths for geometry as well. So, very quickly, this is algebra. Okay, was invented by this man, Khwarazmi, okay, and it was that was then used to make the geometrical patterns. And calculus, quadrants, decimals and fractions were used by Al-Kashi. Some of you are going to hate this if you don't like maths. And trigonometry, this is actually the same man, Al-Battani, who invented the astrolabe. And while he was doing all his work, he then also invented trigonometry, sine, cosine and tangent as well. Did you know are all derived from Arabic terms? The word algebra is an Arabic word, al-jabr. Did you know? Okay. The second golden age of Islam then took place because of all the first generation golden age. And like I said right at the beginning, for those of you who came later, there are over 1001 inventions in this book. I have also got this book here, which is for children, which is a simplified version. And this is the latest book. These are all presents, by the way, all presents people have given me. And this is the latest book, which is unopened. My son brought this back from Malaysia for me, from the museum, and it's got more timeline of Islamic civilizations. Right. Thank you very much.
Ting! The bell's gone off, time up. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, it's now time to eat.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, shall we eat, everybody?
Good to see you. Well, for last time. It's going around here, but
So, just out of curiosity, are you doing this? Then you got to check your put it back into right train.
You take the train and then stop.
It was yesterday. And then the next one, especially get the ladder. Before you go, you've got an email. Give me your email address and then I'll let you know. I think the next one.
That was a nice refreshment and nice light food.
A good lesson learned.
We now get together for our final speaker. Lakshya Singh Bui is our Sikh faith representative. He's a regular speaker, so we'll give him a welcome hand.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I hope you have enjoyed the dinner. I'm going to speak this person. He's a very well-known person. He's a worldwide famous person. He's born in a small village called Gaha in Pakistan. He wrote about 69 books. Anyone can guess? Who is that?
On what subject did you write the books?
No, I'm going to not tell you then.
That's cheating.
Who's this
That's
person
not
then?
fair.
No, you actually can see over there.
Almanac. No.
No, it's Dr. Manmohan Singh.
Oh.
Dr. Manmohan Singh, he's the ex-Prime Minister of India.
Ah.
And he also translated our Guru Granth Sahib in 8 volumes in English and Punjabi. Dr. Manmohan Singh is a devout Sikh, lost everything worldwide in the partition of India and Pakistan. He began work on what would be lasting legacy. He worked on this for 12 years, completing it in 1960. This is the 8th volume of a set with originally Gurmukhi side by side with the translation into English and Punjabi, with the nearly every word individually cross references across the 3 languages. The SPC is actually Shromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee is like Sikh community, Sikh head of the called program who is all the Gurudwaras. That's called.
Oh, Shifra.
And distributed this 8 volume set in the dark blue cover. Okay, I'm just showing some of his qualification, which is he done quite a lot of qualification. Okay, he done BA Honours Economics 1952, MA First Class in Economics 1952, Punjab University Chandigarh. Then a Sharper, Punjab, India. Honours degree in Economics, University of Cambridge, and he is a member of St. John's College 1957. Senior lecturer Economics 1957 to 1958. He does 1915 to 1960, professor 1963 to 1965, professor of international trade 1969 to 71, and D.Phil. D.Phil is like a similar degree of a PhD. And on those days when he did the PhD, and they used to call D. philosopher. D. philosopher is the same qualification as PhD. Honorary Professor 1968, Chief Finance of Trade Section, UNCTD, United Nations Secretariat, New York. 1966, Economics Affairs Officer 1966, Economics Advisor, Ministry of Foreign Trade, India, 1971 to 1972, Chief Economics Advisor, Ministry of Finance, India, 1972 to 1976. Honorary Professional, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, 1976. Director, Reserve Bank of India, 1970 to 1980. Director, Industrial Development Bank of India, 1976 to 1980. Board of Governors, Asian Development Bank, Manila. Secretary of Finance, Bank of India, 1982 to 1985. Deputy Chairman of Planning Commissioner of India, 1985 to 1987. Secretary General South Commission of Geneva, 1987 to 1999. Advisor of Prime Minister of India of Economics Fair, 1999 to 1991. Chairman University of Grants Commission, 15th March of 1991 to 20 June of 1991. Finance Minister of India, 21st June 1991 to 15th 1996. Member of Parliament in the Rajya Sabha, 1st October 1991 and 14th June to 2019. Leader of Opposition India in Rajya Sabha, 1988 to 2004. Prime Minister of India, 22nd May 2004 to 26th May 2040, nearly 10 years.
It's 10 years, that's a long time for India.
Yeah. Member of Parliament in Rajya Sabha, 19 August 1999.
Okay, go.
Okay, talk, yeah.
Okay, just to go into a little bit about Manmohan Singh. Manmohan Singh was born in September 1932 in Gaha, Punjab, British India, into Sikh family. His father's name is Mr. Gurmukh Singh and mother's name Amrit Kaur. He lost his mother when he was very young and raised by his grandmother, to whom he was very close. His early schooling was in the Urdu medium and even as Prime Minister years later. He wrote his Hindi speeches in Urdu script, although sometimes he would also use Gurmukhi, a script used to write Punjabi, his mother tongue. After the partition of India in 1947, Dr. Manmohan Singh's family migrated to Amritsar, Punjab, India. He studied at Hindu College, Amritsar. He attended Punjab University, then in Shahpur, studying economics, and got his bachelor and master degrees in 1952 and 94, respectively. Standing the first thought out his academic career. He completed his economics drops of University of Cambridge in 1957. He was member of St. John's College. After the Cambridge, Singh returned to the India and served as a teacher at Punjab University in 1960. He went to the University of Oxford for his deep philosophy, where he was a member of Newfield College. His 1962 doctorate thesis under the supervision of IMD Little was titled India's Export Performance 1951-1960, Export Prospects and Policy Implication, and was later the basis of his book India's Export Trends and Prospects of Self-Sustained Growth. After obtaining his doctorate in economics from Oxford. Dr. Manmohan Singh worked for the UN during 1969. He subsequently began his bureaucratic career when Lalit Narayan Mishra hired him as an advisor in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. During the 1970s and 1980s, Dr. Manmohan Singh held several key posts in Government of India, such as Chief Economics Advisor 1972-1976, Governor of the Reserve Bank 1982 to 1985. He had a Planning Commissioner 1985 to 1987. In 1991, as India faced several economic crises, the newly elected Prime Minister Nasser Mia hired him as an advisor in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. During the 1976 and 1980, Dr. Manmohan Singh held several key posts of Government of India, such as Chief Economics Advisor 1976, Government of Reserve Bank 1988 to 1985, and Head of Planning Commission 1980. Okay. In 1991, as India faced several economic crises, the newly elected Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao introduces as a political Dr. Manmohan Singh into his cabinet as a finance minister. Over the next few years, despite strong opposition, he carried out several structural reforms that liberalized Indian economy. Although these measures proved successful in averting the crisis and enhanced Singh's reputation globally as a leading reform-minded economist, the incumbent Congress Party fared poorly in the 1996 general election. Subsequently, Dr. Manmohan Singh was leader of the opposition in Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the Parliament of India, during the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government of 1988 to 2004. In 2004, when the Congress-led United Progress Alliance came to power, its chairperson Sonia Gandhi unexpectedly relinquished the Prime Ministership to Mr. Singh. His first ministry executed several key legislation and projects, including the National Rural Health Mission, Unique Indefinition, Author of the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, and the Right of Information Act. In 2008, opposition to the historical civil nuclear agreement with the United States nearly caused Singh's government to fall after the left front. Party withdraw their support. India's economy grew rapidly under his regime. The 2009 general elections saw the UPA return with the increased mandate, with Singh retaining the office of Prime Minister. Over the next few years, Singh's second ministry government faced a number of corruption charges over the organization of the 2010 Commonwealth Games, the 2G spectrum allocation cases, and the allocation of local blocks. After the term ended in 2014, he opted out from the race of the office of the Prime Minister during the 2014 Indian general election. Singh was a never member of the Lok Sabha, but has served a member of Rajya Sabha, representatively as state of Assam, from 1991 to 2099. Dr. Manmohan Singh, who served as the 13th Prime Minister of India from 2004 to 2014, he was the third longest serving Prime Minister after Jawaharlal Nehru and Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Dr. Manmohan Singh was the first Sikh and non-Hindu Prime Minister of India. He was also first Prime Minister since Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru to be re-elected and completing the full 5-year term. Early career. After completing his deep philosophy, Dr. Mohan Singh returned to India. He was a sincere lecturer of economics at Punjab University from 1957 to 1959. During 1959 to 1960, he served a leader economics at Punjab University, and from 1963 to 1960 he was economics professor there. Then he went to work at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development from 1960 to 1960. Later he was appointed as an advisor of the Ministry of Foreign Trade by Lalit Narayan Mishra in recognition of Singh's talent as an economist. From 1969-1979, Dr. Mohan Singh was a professor of international trade at Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. In 1972, Dr. Mohan Singh was a chief economist advisor in the Ministry of Finances, and in 1976 he was secretary in finance minister in 1980 to 1982. He was the planning commissioner, and in 1982 he was appointed governor of the Reserve Bank of India under the finance minister of Punjab, Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee, and held the post until 1985. He went to become a deputy chairman of the Planning Commission India in 1985 to 1987. Following his tenure at the Planning Commission, he was Secretary General of the South Commission and Independent Economics Policy think tank headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, from 1987 to November 1990. Dr. Mohan Singh returned to India from Geneva in November 1990 and held the post as the advisor of Prime Ministers of India Economics Affairs during the tenure of Chandra Shekhar in March 1991. He became the chairman of University Grants Commission. In 1918 December, he wrote his speeches and papers, which is published by Oxford University, 5 volumes, and the first four volume is 4 books, and the 5th volume is 2 books, volume 1 and volume 2, and they are all teachers in the old universities in here of Oxford University, Cambridge University, and also in Harvard University, all the books. But he written the teaches to the students in these countries and India as well.
Well, what were the books about?
It's economics.
Oh, purely economics.
Economics and other one as well. Other one is he translates for the few books as well, and also he translated our holy book, which is called Guru Granth Sahib, in written in Gurmukhi, our Guru Granth Sahib, holy book, and he's translated in English and Punjabi. It's 8 volumes. It's quite big volumes. And Guru Granth Sahib is 1,430 pages in there. And if you've seen our Guru Granth book, it's quite a big book. And but with other author as well, translate as well. But he mentioned every single word, the meaning as well, you know. Yeah. And that's why he's a very clever guy.
It sounds like he's been a bit.
And he's done a lot of things.
And is he still alive?
Oh yeah, he's still alive,
And where does he live in India?
Yes, I'm just going to, he got 3 daughters. Oh, so that's his family.
Yes.
His Prime Minister, Mr. Mohan Singh's wife's name is Gushan Kaur, and he has 3 daughters called Upinder Singh, Daman Singh, and Amrit Singh. Upinder Singh is a professor of history and Ashoka University, that's in India. She has written 6 books, and including Asians, Delhi 1999, and a history of Asians and early medieval in India. The third daughter, Dharman Singh, second daughter, Dharman Singh, is a graduate of St. Stephen's College, Delhi, and Institute of Rural Management, Anand, Gujarat, and author of The Lost Frontier People and the Forest in the Mizoram, and the novel 9 by 9. Amar Singh, the third daughter, is a staff attorney at the American Civil Liberties Union. Ashok Panthik, 1980, branch 19, India Policy Service Officer. Son-in-law of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, was appointed CEO of National Intelligence Grid in 2016. Dr. Manmohan Singh has undergone multi-cardiac bypass surgery, the most recent of which took place in January 2009.
Oh, he's still going strong.
Yeah, he's still alive. There's a lot of things that he's done, and why I'm not.
Should have done well price with economics.
Yeah.
So he did a lot for his country?
Yeah, he did a lot of his country, and he is the best prime minister. Even all the world people know, and when he went to America, all the other prime ministers respect him. Even if you look on the online, one of the world's best honest prime minister in the world. Yeah, honest prime minister. Like not like Narendra Modi, Kraftish PM. Thank you very much to listen to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Now we're on to the question and answer session. And speakers can come and sit in the front and be ready for some questions.
Yeah,
ready for short. Let's no statements, but if you can please ask questions of the speakers. Yes, Numan.
Can I ask questions to all the speakers? One question.
Okay.
As Mrs. Naeem was saying, people read the Quran, they were inspired, and they made inventions. So this question goes to all the speakers. In your holy books, have there been any famous people in the past that have actually read the holy book and been inspired to do anything for society or invent anything or anything at all, basically?
All the saints for a start. All the prophets, number 2. Most people are mentioned in the Bible for one of two reasons. They're either very famous or very infamous. So all the famous ones have done good and all the infamous ones have done bad. So we can all claim that one of our ancestors invented fratricide.
Question basically was, as Mrs. Naeem said, people read the Quran and they were inspired, basically everything scientific to economics and everything, to make inventions. Regarding your holy books, have there been any famous people in the past that have read the book and made any contributions at present or in the past?
Okay, in our holy books, right, it doesn't mention any like that. Only the Gurvani, which is all these on those days, like Allah, Ram, Krishna, they written in their name or what they did. Right, Allah did what. But that never mentioned on Jesus actually on our Guru Granth Sahib. I don't know why. It's mentioned of Allah, it's mentioned of Ram, it's mentioned of Krishna, it's mentioned of Ravan, and all the people, religious people on those days, right? In Satyuga and Treta and Dwapara, these 4 yugs, right? All mentioned about there. And also, like those saints came on that time and they teaches a religious thing, and those names are in the Guru Granth Sahib, but not any who invented anything like that, those people's name.
Okay. Next speaker.
I'd like to say something about Abdul Baha, for example, encouraged one of the first interracial marriages in America between a black man and a white woman. So So Baha'is basically, their endeavours are to bring people together, to ignore, Baha'u'llah says the world is but one country, humanity its citizen, one humanity. So race is completely irrelevant. So that's one thing Abdul Baha did. He also warned everyone there was going to be a war, which there was.
Yeah, he was right.
But the reason why the Baha'is support the United Nations is an attempt to bring nations together. And that promise of world peace I mentioned is all about what's needed to bring world peace together. But the main culprit is human ego, which in the Baha'i faith is the devil. We don't believe in some separate individual in an overheated cavern. We believe that the ego is the devil, the thing that says, I am special, I am better than you, for what I want you must suffer. That is the devil, and it's what we're inside. Baha'u'llah calls it the Satan of self. So all Baha'is are trying to do is get rid of the Satan of self and try and be as unselfish, as altruistic as they can be. And all our efforts are about bringing people together as one country and one person, one kind.
Sister Sidra, you covered a lot. Do you think you've answered the question? I think your
Yes,
lecture has answered the
yes,
question.
my lecture covered everything
So
that the religion
you've answered the question.
that was in there. Yes.
I don't have the strength to answer you tonight. There are thousands and thousands of religious people who have done wonderful things for the world because of their religion. Just because we didn't mention them tonight doesn't mean they don't exist. And they're mentioned in history books and all over the place. I could have mentioned Moses Montefiore and Benjamin Disraeli, and you name them, I can mention them. But we'd be here all night, all day, and all next week if we were to do that.
Okay, the second hand up was this gentleman here in blue.
I think it's following up from what you said as well as things in the history books as well as what's not in the history books. So how faith has affected us personally and what it can do to encourage us to do noble deeds and restrain ourselves as well. So it's those everyday kindnesses or everyday that presence that we can offer people. So that's something that faith can offer as well. It's not simply material or technological or any other progress. It can be simple things that can help us as well. So important to remember the spiritual benefits that faith can give us. So my question is also how you would all define faith, and how are some ways that you've seen it has affected not only the world but your personal or daily lives, and how you've seen faith in practice in the daily aspect.
Well, the one person who can answer that question isn't here tonight. It's a shame. Councillor David Taylor. He's one of the local councillors. Everything he does because he's a Christian. The way he behaves as a councillor is inspired by his appreciation and knowledge of the New Testament and of what Christian faith is. He doesn't do a single thing that isn't. So you don't need to have famous people doing it. It's probably what you mentioned, the everyday people letting their faith inspire them to do what's right. I mean, I think that's what we all aim for in the first place.
Yes.
It's what we all aspire to do. It's to get our congregation to make their faith the main inspiration of their lives. And if only they did, it'd be brilliant.
I'll give you an example, is that in one of the West, I can't remember where it was in the West Indies, but there was one place where there was no education for girls. And so one of the Baha'is set up a school, especially done solely for girls, so they could have an education. Because Baha'u'llah says everyone must have an education, and if it's only possible to educate one of your children, one is a boy and one is a girl, you educate the girl, she will be the first educator of the next generation. Next generation. But everyone should be educated. That's the sort of worst case scenario where you have to make a choice. And so that obviously that influences this person to make this a school, especially for girls. I think when you belong to religion, there are two principles of faith. The first is recognition, the second is obedience. Without one, you can't have the other. If you say, yes, I believe, I'm such and such, I'm such and such, and then you do all the things that you're not supposed to do, no, you're not such and such and such. Your proof of your religion is in your obedience to it. So, belonging to religion, it influences what you do. Coming up, on the 1st of March, the Baha'i fast begins for 19 days and runs into Ramadan. So you won't get many Muslims and Baha'is eating towards the middle of March. But that's between you and God. No one can tell you to fast. It's up to you. And no one can say, oh, you shouldn't be fasting, you shouldn't do that. That's up to you.
Why do you fast? What is it supposed to do? Cleanse you?
It's supposed to be spiritual. It's a reminder. During this fast, you're supposed to have become particularly spiritual. Medically, it's good for you.
Yes.
Medically, it's good for you as well. And one of the things you notice, I noticed the first time I did a fast, I got to about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The Baha'i fast is always at the same time of year, just before the equinox, so it's roughly the same all over the world. I think, oh dear, I feel hungry and thirsty, oh dear, and I thought, there are people in the world who are starving. I'm going to eat in an hour's time.
Right.
But there are people who work, and you start thinking about the people who do not have the food, who cannot have a cup of tea whatever they want, and so on. I can now because I'm over 70. The Baha'u'llah says once you're over 70 you're exempt.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the same in Islam or not. Is there an age one in Islam where you're exempt?
There's an illness.
Yes, so there's 7 categories where you're exempt for
Yeah, we've got
fasting.
travelling and so on.
One is children under puberty.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
If you're travelling, if you're pregnant, if you're
Yes.
breastfeeding, if
Yeah.
you're on your menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
if you're old and weak,
Yeah.
vulnerable, if you're on medication.
So that's the same.
Yeah.
That's the
Yes.
same.
So it's the same thing. We don't have a we don't put a number on the on old age,
Yes.
because as you all know, you could be quite old and a very young person.
Yes.
So we don't actually have an age put on it. But yes, when you start getting older and weaker, and you see, if fasting doesn't inspire you into anything spiritual, it's a pure waste of time and energy. Pure waste of time and energy. It is well to stuff yourself, because at least you'll be comfortable feeling wrong. If you're not getting any more spiritual, don't bother. The idea of abstaining from something is to appreciate that the spiritual is more important than the physical, or what we would call the moral and the ethical.
Do you fast from sun up to sundown?
Yes.
And the same in your faith?
Yes, daylight hours.
And
yes.
But ours is always the same time here for 19 days, which is a Baha'i month.
yeah, well, we don't do it really. We don't do it that many days.
We have 7
Yeah, over the year.
over the year, and only 2 of them are from sunset to sunset.
Yeah.
The other 5 are sunrise to sunset.
Again, attitude is important, because Baha'u'llah says, if at the end of the fast God decides that although you didn't eat and drink between sunrise and sunset, you have not kept the fast, then you have not kept the fast in the eyes of God. If, however, you apparently didn't keep the fast, but your attitude was right and so on, and God decides you have kept the fast, then you have. So it's all a matter of your approach and your attitude and your feelings. Not grumble, not eat and drink, as Lee just said. Yeah. It's the whole sort of, and again, it's the same thing about giving to something. Baha'is are supposed to give 19% of their net income after they paid the rent and got the food, etc., to something called hukuk Allah, the right of God. But there is a rule for giving it, and that is you must want to give it. You must want to give that 19% to God. If you don't want to give it, don't give it. He doesn't want it.
Really?
And that's vital. That's another vital part about the whole thing.
Interesting.
Okay, question to young lady. When you pray, you especially do one direction, special direction.
Yeah.
What is the reason?
Yeah. So if everybody in the whole world is all facing towards one direction, all at the same time, it promotes love and brotherhood and unity. So that's the reason. So that we're all facing one way, we're all praying together, and it's
Regardless
unity,
of where
isn't
you
it?
are.
Brotherhood. No,
But for
regardless
us,
of where we are.
for us that direction is where intelligence and education and study and therefore enlightenment to the world originated from. That's why we're facing east. Because it's from the east that education brought enlightenment to the rest of the world. So if you're looking to bring enlightenment to yourself, your life, your world while you're praying, that's the direction to look at.
Yeah, it's written in the Bible. Always do the direction to the Hakel, temple.
Yeah.
So what was the direction there? Is the east
Okay, it's towards the
east or west or?
It's towards the east. Unless you live in Australia, in which case it's west.
No,
if you live on the other side of the world, it's west.
Can I say something? In our religion, Guru Nanak said, God is everywhere. You can pray whichever direction you want it, right? When Guru Nanak went to Mecca, the Haji said to him, why are you sleeping your legs towards Mecca? And he said, which side is not Mecca, you can move my legs on there. And Haji moves his legs. Which side he see, Mecca is that side. Which side he move his legs, Mecca is that side. Guru Nanak was trying to say to God is everywhere. You don't have to be one direction. On this
That's my question. Why is the one direction?
Which I've answered.
Yes.
You asked and I've answered.
It's an opinion of unity, isn't it? That's the answer.
That is the reason, yes. Unity and harmony.
And the Quran also says God is of the east and the west, so it's all encompassing. And the chief thing during prayer is to remember that you have God in your heart, and that's the sole focus. So like you said, it's to reduce like arguments and have that unity. But the first command is always to have the full presence of God in your heart when you're praying. So just turning to God fully with your mind, body, and soul. So that's like.
And we also do believe that God is everywhere as well.
We all believe that one.
Yes.
Now, next Havering Interfaith event will be on the topic of food in our faith.
Oh, that's interesting.
With fast breaking in Ramadan in March. And more details are to follow. And everybody's welcome.
Venue in time.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Have a safe journey home.